All right, let's jump into it. Tatey feels. Let's see how it feels. Let me know if you can hear the music as well. First thing I'll say is the kick sounds a bit boxy. What that normally means is that it's got a bit much energy around between the kind of 1 and 300 hertz range. So if I just pull out a little bit of EQ there, to me it sounds a bit tighter. Subtle stuff, but always a good trick. Okay, so you've, like, straight off the bat, there's quite a few elements that kind of, they're all fine, but it feels quite robotic because I think of the way that like every element is kind of playing constantly at the same volume or velocity. There's not much movement in any of the elements, like your hats, or then you've got these two vocals that could be doing like a cool call and response, but they're kind of like happening at the same place, and everything feels very robotic. Like I think you want to just go a little bit next level, so always try like adjusting the volume of these things to see if you can get them to sit a bit nicer. I find EQing off some of the top can sometimes get these things to feel a bit nicer. A bit of sidechain on them can help them feel like sit in the track a bit nicer. And then having something like, so having, what's it saying? Like it says something like donor, it feels, like having, say, the first one playing every bar and then the it feels playing every second bar, or something like in the first bar you have donor, it feels, donor, feels, or something like that, just to kind of switch it up and keep it kind of, creating some kind of difference in each bar. And then you can kind of then expand that over like 4 bars or 8 bars, and it just kind of starts to feel like a bit more movement, and like the idea has been expanded a bit. Now you're getting like quite a few different elements in there, and I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to kind of create depth and call and response and add more kind of layers and more detail, but it feels like it's getting a bit hectic. Like I think with these kind of call and response things, you still want it to be really strong, and sometimes you can add too many elements, and if they're not like different enough in sound, like some of these elements that you've got kind of layered up now, they sound like very similar kind of patches or sounds, so there's not really enough separation between them. So always try to have like, and I think if you do this, like if you have two sounds that are very different, kind of playing the same like one half of the same riff each, it's going to kind of add more to it than adding like 10 layers. That's my experience. Like you kind of want it to be simple, but sound rich and complex. So it's kind of like it's changing up quite a lot here, where you've got like you're replacing things with something else that's doing the same thing, or like adding new elements that are doing the same thing. It's not kind of like going up a level. It's kind of like moving sideways. What I mean, like up a level in like energy or intensity. So all that said, I think you've got like a really cool idea here. It's just a bit of refinement and like taking out some of the clutter, fine-tuning the sounds that are there so that they're really strong, powerful, working well, and then bringing back in a little bit of the detail in a more kind of like more intentional kind of way. But I think you've pretty much got all the elements that you could need to make this track really work. It's just a bit of refinement, I think. Okay, we've got a lot of action in the chat here. Coolmaker, can I still send a track? You can, yeah, but we've got quite a few to get through, so we'll see how we go. Can't guarantee it'll get listened to. Hey Anthony, Arthur. So Arthur, I post the live stream, and there's a link to Patreon where you can submit tracks. And Dos, how's it going? Anthony Huttley, something I learned from this channel is often less is more. Try to create variation with less instruments these days. I think that was a big thing for me. It kind of took my music up a level 100%. It's not easy. Like it's often tracks become cluttered and become cluttered, and they're less refined because that's easier, because you don't know how to necessarily fine tune that sound or get the most out of it. And when you add something more on top, it kind of masks that problem. But then all those problems build up, and that's how and then you get to like the mixdown stage, and like you're pulling your hair out because nothing sounds clear. It's because it's not clear. You've kind of covered up issues with more stuff. Anyway, let's move on. So I think your kick is quite a lot too quiet in this. I thought it was like filtered out, but it just seems like it's too quiet actually. Maybe it's filtered out. Oh, maybe it's coming. Right, so you're kind of like your backbeat with your kick, clap, and hat. So it's a really simple thing, and this kind of goes into this less is more kind of idea. To me, that's like the foundation of the beat, And what I kind of aim to get is like just having those three sounds playing together. You want to have it sound like really good, like it's kind of, and it when those sounds are right and just come together, it can be like you can have literally three elements playing and the track can sound like awesome. So I would spend a bit more time on getting like a main hat, a kind of clap or snare, and a kick that work together here, because that's the foundation of your track, and all the other stuff that you put on top of that is never going to sound great if you don't have that foundation right from the start. So like you've got there's some good parts to this, like the kick, hat, and clap have some good separation, but I think the hat is too high. The clap or snare sounds a bit too high as well, a bit kind of harsh, and probably could do with some reverb on it. Like I would expect a clap or something to have a bit more power, a bit more body around this kind of 900 hertz. Anyway, like just basically you're getting that sounding right, and it could be a matter of layering those things and bringing in a little bit more body, because both of your clap and hat are very high frequency based. So just already starting from the foundation, your track is sounding a bit harsh. I can see that just by, I can hear it, but then I can confirm it by looking at the waveform that your clap is, or snare or whatever it is really, really loud comparative to the other elements. On a positive note, you do have everything quite well separated in the frequency spectrum, so like everything sounds really clear. Even though there's kind of quite a lot going on, it's quite a busy track. It's also, I mean, it's a bit of a strange arrangement, but I'm not sure what you're going for there, but yeah. So like you can kind of hear, this is demonstrating what I was saying quite well. If you, instead of like having the clap, like, you know, there's kind of like some percussion, like a little bit of percussion, the main kind of closed hat and the kick are just working so well together. And then on top of that, they've layered like these pads and synths and like kind of percussion delays and stuff, and it's just, but it's built on like a foundation that just really works and gels together. Really nice the way you've kind of introduced this kind of lead melody or lead riff, then really given its moment to shine in there, and then come back to the groove here. Really well done. Loving the kind of deep progressive vibes of this too. I think, yeah, some of the previous tracks could kind of see from this a little bit about, because there's kind of lots of stuff going on, but the sounds are separated. They're not like, it's not like a bunch of the same things on top of each other. This is, yeah, I mean, this is absolutely sick. I love it. I think I've got nothing really to add. I think you need to send it out as a demo, get it signed, which is not always easy, but I know you guys have got some collaboration tracks together already, so maybe that fits into the package. But yeah, maybe hitting some kind of deeper progressive labels or some kind of organic house labels. But it's really, really good. I think the combination of like unknown vibes has got a bit more of a driving kind of sound, and Mirage is like an amazing producer and sound designer and mix engineer, and yeah, his tracks are just really fucking good. So I think that is a pretty solid combo. there I was like wanting some kind of like acoustic drum fill, like a real live drummer would play. I think that would really like kind of having it quite loud and powerful would really kind of help lead into that drop. Mystery Box says in the chat that he thinks the drums seem a little bit bright for the track. I'd probably disagree. I think the track's quite floaty. It's also got quite a strong bass, and I think that the brightness of the drums kind of helps lift it up a bit. Like if I kind of pull the highs down a bit, it feels a little bit dull and it kind of loses some of the drive. It sounds very, very chill, you know. But I think in this, in general, the mix could be a bit more, a bit stronger. It does feel like it's lacking a little bit of punch in some regards, but yeah, maybe the contrast between the like kind of bright drums and the dull kick. But in general, really, really good. And I was just searching Beatport. Luca, it doesn't seem like you've released any music. You've been sending stuff in here for ages, and your stuff is really good, and it's been good for a long time. I think you need to kind of take the next step and start putting yourself out there a bit and sending your music out to some labels. I'm definitely not a expert on this kind of like deep breakbeat stuff, but so I can't really advise you where to send it, but somewhere there's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only label that I can think of that releases stuff in this vein is Anjuna Deep, and that's like a big, I mean, I think that's a goal for like probably half the producers in the world, but you know, give it a go. Why not? I think your kick could be like 1 or 2 dB louder, Dickie, and maybe maybe a different kick. I'm not sure. Something, yeah. I think maybe the kick is not quite working for this one. It kind of, I feel like it's lacking a bit of power. Bass sounds really cool. Bass is quite subby. It's got like a nice kind of growl to it, but yeah, maybe the kick is letting that down a bit, that kind of relationship between the two. Lots of good details in this as well. Really cool. I think some kind of vocal, just like a couple of words or something that just gives it a little bit more character, or a little bit something that's a little bit more memorable. Because like everything's working really well, but it kind of like feels a little bit like a backing track, but with it still quite a lot of stuff in it. There could be a few bits that you could take out. There's something that's happening in my right ear. It's very subby, and it's only on one side. It might just be in my headphones, it's a bit annoying, but it also might cause issues in the low end. I'm not sure what it is, maybe a percussion sound or something, but you might want to look at taking that out, or see if it's really necessary, and if it is, then maybe center it. But the whole kind of groove and all the sounds you've got working really well together. Quite a lot of details, like quite a lot of stuff going on in the background, which is not bad, but I'm just wondering if you're like relying on that a bit much. Like I think if you found some kind of small vocal thing that you could put in the breakdowns or something like that, you might not need as much of that kind of stuff going on in the background, but really solid stuff anyway. So you've done something here that can be a bit of a problem. You've introduced a lot of stuff very quickly here, and now the track is really full. And so now I've got a feeling like maybe the rest of the track is going to be quite linear and quite samey, like. Like you've kind of given everything away before this like first drop, and I think that's something that's really important in arrangement, is like holding things back. You want to kind of give enough that people are into the track, but you kind of want to have some surprises up your sleeve, you know. And in order to do that, you need to kind of hold something back and have space in the track. So yeah, in the break, I think you could definitely, like I just did with the EQ, just take out some more, kind of thin it out a bit more. It's building good tension, but if I like leave this EQ off, there's a lot of low end in there. It doesn't have the same impact as when you're kind of bringing all that stuff, like bringing all that low end out a bit more. And then you get this real contrast, especially the way that you've brought it in a little bit more of a kind of simplified version. So you've got this, so for me, this part here, this drop, was the best part of the track so far. There's this, is it the... Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, this, I think you've definitely got a bit much in at the start. And now with this ARP and everything, it's sounding way too hectic here. I think those things, those elements just don't work. They don't kind of, they're not working together. They're playing at the same time, and there's a big difference. Also, through some of these sections, it seems like there's not really a bass making any kind of groove in the low end. Let me just get my EQ on. Yeah, so you've got like these quite long bits that you have some kind of sub, and then you've got this like where there's nothing really grooving in the low end. So maybe you could look at replacing some of the, like you've got quite a few kind of bass and mid bass elements going on. You could look at kind of replacing something with like a low tom groove that creates that kind of roll in the low end the whole way through the track. So there's some kind of consistency in that sub section. Yeah, it's kind of going, it's got the same kind of issue the whole way through in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I think it needs a bit of work, but you've definitely got something there. There's a bit of boxiness in your kick. these like really consistent eighth note hats. And this like ride in the background, I think it's just completely wrong for the track, in my opinion. I think some really kind of nice shakers or something with some movement in there, something that's like, this is like really kind of robotic, kind of techno sounding. I think you want something way more organic, maybe some kind of like, you could find like a old disco break for hats or something like that. I think there's like, I really liked the intro, and it kind of hasn't paid off. You've got really cool, there's like a really cool soundscape to this, but I think I don't quite, maybe I'm just not quite getting the concept of it, but I mean, no, I think just taking those hats off, having a bass that's got like a kind of nice, warm, probably sawtooth bass, quite subby, with a bit of groove in it, and some nice like shakers. Yeah, I think it's just going to be so much cooler. Yeah, I think there's something there for sure. It's got like a very unique soundscape to it, which is really working. But there's some like really fundamental issues, I think. It could be one of these things where you start out trying to do one thing, it goes in a different direction, but you kind of, it can be hard to get the perspective to go, okay, this is what the track is saying, let's just follow that, rather than, maybe you had a different idea when you began and you're still kind of pushing in that direction, but you've kind of created a different beast. This is sounding nice, but there's like, I think the mix is quite muddy and quite, like things aren't really kind of punchy, and it probably, I don't know, it sounds like it's kind of potentially made with a bunch of loops. I think it's always a benefit to use MIDI or one-shots at least to create like the main parts of your beat, because then you've got more control over like turning them up, having them punchy and solid. It's sounding good. But it just sounds, yeah, a bit lo-fi. It kind of, yeah, unmixed, and like not everything's not quite as punchy as I would expect from a modern production. think maybe your bass is a bit quiet as well. Maybe also I should have checked the loudness here. Yeah, so probably it needs, I mean, it didn't have, everything's very dynamic in the waveform. So maybe you don't have any limiting or something on it. I think it's always really important to make sure in these little transition points. So like you've got this, still got this offbeat hat playing. If you take that offbeat hat out for this last bar, and then just have that percussion delay thing, and then that clap, maybe put a bit of reverb or something on that clap, so it's a bit more like, and then you've got that percussion delay, then it's, and then it comes back in. That's going to have so much more impact. And these are just like tiny details, but they add a lot of, they can add a lot to a track, right? They just can, it's just that little polish. When I'm like arranging a track, I'll kind of do it and I'll lay it all out, and then I basically go through to every one of these little transition points and try and like fine tune it and get little bits out of the way, give everything space. The other benefit of like the more space you can have there, the more impact you can have in the drop. But yeah, you've got a cool, really cool vibe here. I think it's super solid. Hit me up if you want some help mixing it. I do mix downs for people, so yeah. Is this another one from Mirage? I guess Unknown Vibes sent in the first one. I don't know, it's just an idea, Mirage, but maybe if you tried to, in your solo stuff, try to push a little bit more of that kind of clubby vibe into it. I think it could be good. Really, really cool, man. Like I said, I think you could. I don't know. I'd like to hear some more clubby kind of stuff from you. Because I think your productions are amazing, and I'd like to have some stuff that was a bit more appropriate for me to play, selfishly. But I think that's not just for me. Like, I think if you can make some stuff I think your music could be played by a lot more DJs if it was a little bit more energetic and kind of pushing. Anthony Hutterly loves the progressive vibes in the collab. Crazy. That coming from a progressive house producer. I do too, Anthony. So here's another example of a very boxy kick. You can, like, if you look at the EQ, you can see the kick's literally got like a big EQ hump here. Yeah, I think this is just an example of it's maybe not a good kick. Let's hear it in context. Yeah, really bad kick. It's I don't know. It just doesn't work. It just sounds dull and boxy. So what boxy means is like, you've got like a big cardboard box that kind of, I don't know, you just bought a new TV, or maybe something more square would be better. I don't know, you bought a new microwave, and if you tap the cardboard box on the side, you slap it on the side, it makes that buh, buh, buh kind of sound. That's what a boxy kick refers to, is that it has that kind of sound to it. Mystery box, a nice one. I hear the sound from the ocean. It's in the back of my head when I party. It's once again. I like the idea of having this kind of dissonant pad in there with this kind of like pitch movement, but I feel like it's just a bit too much. It's kind of like, it's a bit too distracting. It kind of makes the vocal and the synths and stuff sound out of key. Also, your drums, I think they're just a bit too simple and a bit too kind of robotic. I don't know, just having like, you know, just find a cool top loop, EQ it a bit like this to kind of take out some of the highs so it's not overpowering what's there, and then just mix it in, like bring the volume right down and then just mix it into taste so that it's just kind of filling up the background a little bit. If you could do that with the right loop, it could kind of just bring everything together a bit. Yeah, so I think you've got like a cool kind of vibe going on, and the vocals really nice. I think just kind of taking away some of the switching out the kick, making the drums a bit more interesting, a little bit less pitch bendy on that pad, maybe also bring it down in volume a little bit would be a good place to start. We don't need much, gone fishing. Sounds like a bumper sticker. So I think you want to fill out the kind of hats and stuff a bit more from the start. You've got some nice atmosphere going on there. But it just feels a little bit kind of like empty, and there's not really, like, there's not much going on. Let's reference this again. You know, it's got this shaker on one side, it's got the kind of strong open hat, a bit of percussion that's like a little bit quieter and just kind of yeah, kind of happening. There's just a bit more detail. The bass is very mono and it sounds like the cutoff is the same on every note. It's like how do I explain? You want to have maybe some difference in velocity and then have that mapped to the cutoff so that when the notes are different velocities, they're opening and closing the filter a bit more. Maybe try adding a bit of chorus to the bass, maybe a little bit of delay and reverb, just subtly, and then make sure you're always cutting out the lows on those. So that, but I think that will just help the bass to sit in the track a bit nicer. So if you're gonna, like, if you're gonna, it sounds like a bass that should be quite subby. you've got quite a bit of mid-range in it. So if you're going to have a mid-range in it, I think you probably want to have it be a bit more interesting, have a bit more character. Some of these, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a dub techno chordy synth type things. It sounds like you've cut out quite a lot of the low end. It sounds like you've kind of done this type of thing. I could be wrong, but I think it's always sounds more nicer and more natural to kind of EQ things a bit more like that. And then you can use something like a kickstart or LFO tool. In the low end to use this like filter, so you can like sidechain out the lows where the kick plays, but without that harsh cut, and then also without the kind of audible pumping on the highs and mids. Some, I mean, yeah, definitely a bit of refinement to go there, I think. Nune, regarding mixing, send me an email, bro. I'll give you all the info. So send me an email with those questions, and we'll go from there. Yeah, so this has got a similar issue in the bass. Like it's just quite robotic. There's not much movement to it. There's not, like, it's not a very interesting sound. That can be fine, but you then want something to be interesting in this kind of low mid area. Also these synths you've got happening here. Cool, but I think for this part of the track, I would recommend keeping them closed a little bit more. Cool vocal. The beat's a bit boring. Like if we were to just mute everything and just listen to the drums and the bass, I think it would probably be quite a boring track. That open hat that you put there helps pick it up, but So this sounds, this has like a bit nicer call and response. So this brown, like the two sounds are very different, which kind of creates this. That's always a good thing for call and response, when there's like good separation between the sounds. I don't think this vocal is benefiting from being looped. It's not like working with the groove, and it doesn't have like an awesome groove of its own. It's got a cool sound to the vocal, fits with the track, but I don't think looping it like that is doing any. It's kind of detracting from the value of the vocal. And then if you were going to loop it, I think you would build it up more, maybe add a bit of reverb and delay or something. And then cut out the vocal there. You know, you want to create tension and dynamics and change and shift in the track, right? So you've kind of had this point that should have tension and release, and it's kind of built up, and then it just kind of carries on, and then you take out the vocal here, and then it brings the track down. Whereas what I would recommend doing is like having that vocal build up, take the vocal out, and then here you could start to filter the vocal in underneath. So you could try also, I mentioned this somewhere earlier, but you could try, so you've got these two different vocals, the looping in different parts of the tracks, sorry. You could try kind of incorporating them together, chop them up, and like have it so they are creating like a call and response. Especially if you're going to have like a vocal looping like this, I think that's a good reference point for creating your bass line, because at the moment the vocal and the bass and any of the other elements aren't really like interacting. So if you really want to have this kind of looping vocal thing going on, I would like get that working and then adjust your bass so that it's playing similarly to the vocal that's going to be looping. Having some kind of movement or chopping up those vocals a little bit to create some kind of cool, interesting textured groove would be really cool. And then you could also have the vocal play in its entirety before the drop or something like that. Your offbeat hat is a little bit loud, especially in comparison to your kick. Maybe there's another bass that's going to come in, but if this is the bass, then I think the bass is also quite a lot too quiet for the track. Like there's not really a lot of the bass is just too quiet to kind of give that groove with the kick. I think with a track like this, it's really important to have that balance right. So I think, yeah, bringing that offbeat hat down, get the bass up and grooving a bit more, maybe the kick 1 dB louder. Nice on the drop. I think here, you know, I think it's with a track like this, it's quite minimal. I think you want to do, you know, the kind of, you really need to work the sounds that are in there. I'm just going to try and find the tempo. What are we at? 126. But I'll just try and kind of demonstrate this. But I would do this like specifically on the snare. Let's grab the Ableton Echo and filter that out a bit. Bring that down. And then just offset these slightly and turn the time. Yeah. You know, doing some kind of interesting delay type thing, basically. It didn't sound that great, but you know, if something like that is just happening on the snare, and then you're kind of like doing a bunch of, on the clap, sorry, and then you're doing a bunch of automation and kind of getting it going a bit crazy and pitchy and you know, you can do a lot. And doing stuff like that on individual elements in a track like this is going to really go a long way. Funnily enough, it sounds like you're doing something like that on some textures in the background. So, I mean, you're building tension in here, but I think it's a little bit overdone. It's boring, basically. Shooting from the hip today. I'm calling it how I see it. But yeah, I think there's just like I'm trying to picture myself playing this to a dance floor, and I can just see it being this kind of quite awkward moment where there's not really much going on for quite a long time. I really like this bit where this much brighter stab comes in. Yeah, I don't know, let's just try this. Yeah, maybe that's too much. Yeah, I think definitely you want to shorten. You can shorten that significantly, like I just did there, and it works. I think when that kind of sonar beep thing comes in, it's probably the most exciting part of the track. So capitalize on it. You know, you can also do some of that kind of delay type of stuff to that beep. I think this track is also a little bit long, a lot long. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not like the audience of DJ who would play it, but 8 minutes for a very kind of minimal groover like this seems a little bit long, a little bit drawn out for current trends. I think for this main kind of bass, it's got quite a bit of mid-range, so I think some chorus, some delay or something would really help to just, yeah, make it sound a bit more full. It sounds like a bit two-dimensional at the moment. It could definitely be a bit more 3D. I think also maybe like if the bass had the cutoff lower, this kind of more, this like rave lead, there would be a bit more space for it. I feel like with the bass having the cutoff quite open and quite a bit of mid-range, and then this bright rave stab, it kind of feels, it's feeling a bit crowded to me. I think, like, in terms of, like, I can see this is not like fully arranged, but I think there's like a cool concept here. What I would do is like have it play with the like this kind of thing up until maybe like the first break, and then introduce the vocal, because the vocal's really cool. But by the time you get to here, you've already introduced like a bunch of different synth riffs. So I think one of those synth riffs could be really cool, but as like a thing to bring the track up to the next level. So I think if you can do everything you can with kind of the basic parts of the track to get it to a part where you introduce the vocal, then you've got... Yeah, maybe then come back to after the vocal, then you introduce these kind of stabs. Yeah, I think this works kind of so I saved this kind of real ravey thing till here. Introduce the chord stabs like after you drop the vocal in. Then you have the ravey bit, and then go back to the chord stabs. In outro. Yeah, I think it's cool. But yeah, definitely needs some work on the arrangement. And I would say some movement on that bass line as well. So it feels like there's, like you don't have a foundation to the drums. This kick is a weird sound and it's a bit weak. You can see when I zoom into the waveform, it's a very short kick. You've got quite a full bass line here. but yeah, so I mean, maybe the kick works with the bass line. I don't think it's a great sound, but you've got this really loud clap, but you don't have like any hats to balance it out. You've just got these like very quiet kind of background 16th things. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to quickly again warp this. And 25. It's just probably easier to show you what I mean rather than talk about it. So let's go to my new sample pack, top loops. Maybe actually hat loops, because we've got a lot of top in there. You know, chuck in a kind of proper offbeat hat like that. Yeah, the kick and the bass are just way out of balance. The kick's really kind of dull, the bass is really overpowering. Okay, so you've got a hat here. Bring that in right from the start. So your bass is way too loud. You're trying to kind of do this thing that I find like new producers do a lot, where they're like, I want to have like a massive fat bass. So they make a really loud bass and make it the main thing of the track, and it just kind of drowns everything else out. I like a bass that's really strong and sounds powerful and sounds like it's driving the track is not really done just by having it super loud. It's kind of like a combination, the way that it interacts with the other things around it, the way that it kind of like kind of rhythmically works with the rest of the parts of the track, and it's a matter of having space for that bass to really do its thing, so not having other elements encroaching on it in terms of the frequencies that they occupy. So this bit here sounds cool. Obviously it's still a bit it's a bit muddy, a bit muffled, but like so if we kind of take that and say like the instruments are a bit quiet as well, so I'll try to turn them up. I say that that's kind of like supposed to be the main part of the track, right? Then we go to this. I think, yeah, there's a lot of work to do. You want to have a really strong foundation for the track,